Hello and welcome to your Week 5 team assignment. The West Company is now going to ask you to put together, I'll call it a risk assessment for them. We want you to look back and create a miniature risk management plan, and to do that we need you to identify both positive and negative risks, and we've got two exercises for you that will give you the opportunity to evolve what your perspective of the risks at the West Company are. Now, Week 1, you worked mission and vision all the way down into last week, putting together KPIs in that business balance scorecard based upon a strategy that was uplinked or loaded upward from a strategy standpoint into the goals and objectives of the organization. So you can see how all these pieces fit together. Now we're going to have you identify positive opportunities called positive risks and negative things that could go wrong with I'll call it our performance, and those are referred to as negative risks. So the big thing to remember is there are both positive and negative risks. Positive risks are usually referred to as opportunities. Negative risks are always seen as something bad, something that we need to either mitigate, transfer, eliminate, or accept and have to just deal with. So if you go ahead and pull your assignment up, you're going to see that one of the first things you need to do is go ahead and pull up the risk matrix assignment information. So if you click on that, it's going to open up a Word document for you. And that Word document, let me go ahead and pull it up here and get it set up for you as a one-page document, is going to walk through all of the components required for you to put together this week's assignment. Now there's one spreadsheet that you're going to be submitting to me. It's going to have two different areas in it, and I'll walk you through that. But the instruction sheet here walks you through that Excel spreadsheet. You'll see that there are three tabs. The first one is the instructions. The instructions gives you additional information on this assignment. Then there's the risk register. You're going to be completing a risk register, and then there's a risk matrix. That risk matrix is where you're going to translate all of the risks that you identified in the risk register into a single, I'll call it numeric format, and then you're going to translate that and put it into the risk matrix. It'll be easier to show you when we get over there than it is to explain it. Explaining it makes it a little tough. So as we talked about, you have negative risks. These are typically the things that you have to do with a negative risk, and then you have positive risks. These are the things that you possibly can do to capture or to utilize that. So the risk register, once again, is going to look exactly like this figure that we've identified for you here. You'll start by putting the ID number for the risk in. First risk is going to be ID number 1. You're going to put a risk name in, so name the risk, then a description of the risk. Then I need you to understand what you think the impact would be, the probability of it happening, and then you're going to put a ranking together for it. You're going to identify whether it's a positive or negative risk, and then you're going to put together a proactive response plan. Whether it's a positive or a negative risk, some level of, I'll call it proactive plan, and then you're going to identify the trigger event and a reactive contingency plan if required. The information is also then going to bring you over into showing you what the risk matrix table looks like. This is the third tab in the spreadsheet, and all you're going to do here is you're going to take that first risk that you identified on the risk register, and you're going to, because you plotted it and you've got an understanding of the impact and the probability, it'll give you a ranking, and then you're just going to come over and you're going to pick a cell in the spreadsheet, you're going to click on it, and you're going to type that number in there. And I'll walk you through a little bit more of that information in a moment here. But this is what I need you to download and understand. This is where the assignment instructions are. Now, once you're done with that, I want you then to go back into that company data sheet that we provided you, the West Company data sheet. And I want you to review the information that's over here again. Look at all of this background information that I'm giving you, plus everything else that you've created as far as strategies, objectives, goals, things like that, and try to identify, I'll call it 10 simple risks. Now, as you're going through this, you'll see that you've got 5 different organizations. There could be a risk associated with trying to communicate between those. You've got something called a mega driver that we've identified for you. That mega driver, we've told you, is a low reliability part. There's probably a very, very high risk associated with the mega driver. So inside this document, you're going to find a couple different areas, but then you're going to have to go off and look at other areas, explore other things that you think are going to show you where other risks might be hiding. Now, I've put together a PowerPoint presentation for you on risks and opportunities, and it's going to walk you through what is a risk. What exactly is it? What is it? What is it in a project? What is it in a program? What does it look like? I give you some examples of positive and negative risks, what those look like, and then we talk about risk management. How do we handle risk management? How do we handle risk planning? The next thing we do is we talk about risk identification, which is a process you're going to be going through, and then risk analysis. You're going to have to be able to do some level of analysis because you're going to be required to, I'll call it, classify these risks as high, medium, and low on two different constraints, one for probability and one for likelihood. So remember that you're going to have to put together a risk response, which means you're going to have to do something with the 10 risks I'm asking you to identify. In addition to that, we're going to talk about how leaders use different terms. Positive risks are referred to as opportunities. Negative risks are usually referred to as something bad that's going to happen, and how do we prevent that from happening. We're going to review for you in this PowerPoint presentation I'll call it a risk management plan, what that would look like if we were going to plan risk management. You'll look at it from a methodology standpoint, roles and responsibilities, how you need budget associated with it, the schedule, risk categories, definitions of risk and impact, and stakeholder tolerance. Now we're going to come down into what I call referring to where we're headed to with your assignment. You need to understand how to identify risks, how there's a qualitative risk analysis, and how it gets plotted into a matrix. So this is part 2 of your assignment. This is ultimately where we're going to plot this into the risk matrix. We give you information on that. We also talk about quantitative risk analysis, how that's accomplished, how to plan risk responses, if they're positive or negative. In addition to that, what we can do with negative ones, how do we control risks, and ultimately just a little bit of a blurb here at the end, and it's from Alice in Wonderland. It's the phrase where Alice is talking to the Cheshire Cat and asks, "What road do I take?" And the Cheshire Cat asks, "Well, where are you going?" And Alice says, "I don't know." And then the response is very traditional, and it's something that you need to remember for your projects and your programs. It says, "Then it doesn't matter if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." So you have to remember that. Just a little bit of a hint. Now, once you're done with that, I need you then to go ahead and download the, I'll call it the assignment spreadsheet. And this is what I refer to as the 3 tabs. So the first tab is an instruction tab, and I just clicked it at the bottom. And this gives you information in the template as to what is required. All of the components that are required for both negative and positive risks. Now, go to the risk register, and you are going to identify over here 10 risks as a minimum. You can have as many as you want, but you have to identify at least 10. Now, one of the things you'll notice is once you download this spreadsheet, you can click on the header and additional information or instructions will pop up. You'll see that there's additional information here, the risk description. If the risk occurs, what will happen to the project? So there's additional information. You want to make sure you go ahead and pull that up and review that, but you would start by cleaning out any information that's in here, and then you can either start on cell 5, you can start anywhere you want, but I need you to identify 10 risks. The easiest way to do it is, this is the risk name. What is the name of this first risk? And then you have to fill in the information going across. All of that information must be filled out all the way across to give you credit for one of the risks. And once again, I said you need at least 10 of them, so identify at least 10 of them. This spreadsheet needs to be filled out completely. Now, if you start at risk 5, or what we refer to as ID number 2 or 1, then what I would ask you to do is then go to the risk matrix. Now, you've got 10 of them you identified over there, and you're getting a good information because you're grading it on the other side as to what the impact and the probability is, and it's going to give you a numeric. That numeric is going to be translated over here. So if it's a medium impact but a high probability of there being a problem, then you would put a 1 here. You can put risk number 2 here, risk number 3 might go up here, and then risk 4 might be in the same one over here, so you put 2 and 4. So there's 2 risks that fall into that category, and then you've got risks 5, 6, and 7 are severe in both, so you can fill that out that way. When you're done, all 10 risks that you identified in the risk register have got to be plotted over here, and I need a numeric. Where exactly do they fit over here? Because this gives you the roadmap of what to work on. Typically, if something is a positive risk, it's something that we want to capture. If something is negative, it's going to fall into the, I'll call it the red areas. So anything over here is what you would be wanting to work on. Actually, all the way down to here is something you would want to be working on to try to mitigate, transfer, eliminate, or find a way to resolve from a risk standpoint. Anything that's in this cell has a very high impact and a very high probability of occurring. These are the must-dos. These are the things that you must, on a project, find a way to eliminate, or they will impact either schedule, cost, or quality. Once you're done with this spreadsheet, the team leader will submit it for me. That's your week 5 team assignment. It's a really positive way to look at putting together positive and negative risks on your project. So I look forward to seeing what your responses are. Once again, you've done a great job getting all the assignments through week 4. Week 5 sets us up for this risk matrix, and then we're going to start exploring some more people-centric pieces. So have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.